They said the mark only returned once in a generation, when the ancestors were displeased, or when a soul returned to finish what another could not. So when the CEO of Obatek, Kweku Adisa, a man of marble towers, steel silence, and forgotten roots, saw the exact same swirling birthmark on a little girl's neck as the one carved beneath his own shoulder since childhood, his knees weakened, and something ancient awakened in him. But what he would discover would not just shatter his empire, it would pull him back to the red dust of a forgotten village, to the sins of his bloodline. The story begins not in a boardroom, but long ago, long before cement grew teeth and swallowed the savannah. It begins where the earth still breathes fire and whispers truth. Abira, a village tucked between the old baobab hills of northern Ghana, where the wind carries drums and the rivers remember names. There, the sun is no gentle friend. It lashes the back like a disapproving elder. The dust is red, not red like rust, but like memory. It clings to your skin, enters your nostrils, and settles on your spirit. Birds don't sing, they tell. And when night falls, the sky spills stars like calabash milk. It was under such a sky that the first bearer of the Odu-Mark made a promise broken. Kweku Adisa was the kind of man whose suits cost more than a farmer's entire harvest, but beneath that suit, between his shoulder blades, hid a mark shaped like a curling flame. Doctors called it a dermal spiral anomaly. His grandmother had called it Odu-Mark. "You carry the echo of an unfinished story," she once told him, her voice like rustling raffia. He had laughed then. That was the last time he visited Abira. He was only 12. Now 42, Kweku had traded cowhide drums for digital alerts. Obatek was rising fast, a powerful African startup bridging AI and traditional knowledge systems. His office tower in Accra pierced the clouds, but that morning, the little girl appeared. Her name was Tani, no more than 7. She had come with a delegation of students on a school tour. Most children were wide-eyed, chewing bubble gum and fiddling with their uniforms. But Tani, she just stared. Brown skin dusted with the warmth of northern soil, eyes too knowing for her age. A white thread tied around her wrist. Then her collar slipped, and he saw it, the mark. His mark, identical, spinning leftward like a secret. His chest tightened, not in fear, in recognition, like something in his blood sat up straight. He called his assistant. "Who is that child?" She checked. "She's from Abira, sir, a school near Tamale." His ears rang. The room tilted. He whispered, "Bring her to me." In his private office, she sat silently, legs swinging. He crouched beside her. "What's your name, little one?" "Tani," she replied, voice clear. "Who are your people?" "I don't know. I stay with old Mama Binta in the hills." Kweku's throat tightened. Binta was the name of his grandmother. "Do you know what this mark means?" She nodded. "It means I am never lost. Even when I do not know where I come from, I am not lost." He touched the swirling flame on her neck with trembling fingers. "Who told you that?" She blinked slowly. "The tree." "What tree?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The one that sings when the moon is crooked. The one with the face." Kweku staggered back. She spoke of the baobab of memory, the one behind his grandmother's compound. It was said that tree held voices and cursed blood. He left work early that day, unheard of in 15 years. By dusk, he stood in his penthouse staring at the mark in the mirror. It burned, not metaphorically, not as guilt, but real. It pulsed. He reached behind him and felt it moving. That night, he dreamt of the baobab. Its bark wept. Its branches pointed downward, and from its roots crawled a shape. It had his face, but no eyes. It whispered, "The debt is not paid." He awoke to find red dust on his apartment floor. The girl had never left his office. His assistant called the next morning. "Sir, I checked the visitor log. No one named Tani was ever signed in yesterday. He paused. Number she was here. I spoke to her. Sir, there was no school group scheduled yesterday. Security has no footage. There's nothing. And then, just before the call ended, she added, one thing though, when we checked your office, we found this, a string, white, old, tied in a perfect loop. The road to Abira was not paved with convenience. It was dust-choked, rutted, winding like an old man's stories. Kweku sat in the back seat of the black SUV, city suit folded in a garment bag beside him. He wore a simple white boo-boo now, freshly pressed but already gathering the red dust that rose like a whisper with every mile. His driver, Kojo, said little, only the necessary prayers when passing termite mounds, shaped like ancestral shrines. They had driven 6 hours north from Accra. Now they neared the land of his birth. The air thickened. The sky changed color, not just light, but spirit. They passed a dried riverbed. A woman in wrapper cloth stood motionless beside it, balancing a calabash of water that shimmered, though the river was dry. Kojo whispered, "Don't stare. Some things are not for the eyes of those who left." Kweku looked away, but in the rear-view mirror, the woman was gone. As they approached Abira, the land itself seemed to remember him before the people did. The baobabs were taller than memory, their trunks gnarled like the hands of old drummers. They were scattered across the land like forgotten gods. They passed rows of compound houses with brown mud walls etched with white Ashanti symbols, spirals, eyes, and crosses. Smoke rose from wood fires. Children with wide foreheads and bare feet ran behind goats and dreams. It had been 30 years. Kweku leaned his head against the window. He remembered the stories his grandmother once told by Moonlight, that the baobab of memory only bloomed blood red once every generation. And when it did, a debt was due. They arrived at the threshold of Abira just as the sun began to lean west. Women pounded yam in wooden mortars. A boy carried a rooster upside down, its wings flapping like protest. Chickens scattered at the sound of tires crunching dry leaves. Then the village grew quiet. Eyes turned, faces emerged from the shadows of courtyards. A wrinkled man in kente stood from a carved stool beneath a neem tree. His voice, thin but sharp, cracked the silence. "Is that the Adisa boy?" Kweku stepped out. His leather shoes kissed red earth. "Yes, I've come to see old Mama Binta." The old man's eyes narrowed. "She has been dead 13 seasons." The words struck like rain on tin. "But the girl? Tani," she said. Kweku paused. He suddenly felt foolish, like a man chasing a shadow in a market crowd. The villagers murmured. Someone mentioned the mark. The old man stepped closer. "Remove your shirt." Kweku hesitated, but something deeper than pride moved his hands. He lifted his boo-boo. Gasps. Women crossed themselves with shaking fingers. An elder woman spat on the ground and muttered a prayer. The old man's lips trembled. "It is the Odu-Mark, like your great-grandfather's, like Binta's father before her." A small girl emerged from behind the neem. Her hair was threaded, her feet bare. She wore a faded yellow dress. It was Tani. Kweku's heart dropped. You were in my office." She nodded slowly. "I came through the echo." He knelt before her, eyes wide. "What are you?" "I am not a ghost. I am not a dream," she said softly. "I am the answer to a promise and a key to a closed door." The old man stepped between them. "She has lived with us since the night lightning split the baobab. None know who bore her, but she speaks to trees. And once she walked into the forest for 3 days and came back dry." Tani turned and walked toward the grove behind the village. Without speaking, The elders followed. So did Kweku. The baobab of memory stood at the edge of the village, where the land sloped towards silence. Its trunk was wider than a bus. Its bark bore carvings, names, animals, sacred symbols, layered over time like sediment. A fresh crack split the side, still raw, oozing white sap like milk. Tani touched the trunk and whispered. The wind stilled. Suddenly, the mark on Kweku's back began to glow faintly, then pulse with heat. He dropped to his knees. Visions flashed. A man in chains, blood spilled on red earth. A crying baby left beneath this very tree. Tani spoke. Her voice was not her own. Your ancestor broke a vow made to the land. He sold the sacred grove to outsiders. For gold. Kweku trembled. I didn't know. She stepped closer. But you carry the blood. And the blood remembers. The old man turned to him. The debt must be balanced, or the mark will spread from your back to your house to your name. Kweku stood, dizzy, eyes wet. What must I do? Tani looked into the bark, as if reading it. Sleep beneath the tree tonight. If the ancestors accept you, you will dream the path. He looked at the baobab again. Its face was clear now, eyes closed, mouth pursed, waiting. The wind changed after sunset. It no longer carried the heat of the day, but something cooler, older, like breath from the lungs of the ancestors. Kweku lay on a woven raffia mat beneath the baobab of memory. The villagers had placed a gourd of water by his side and circled his body in ash and she oil. No one spoke after dark, not when a man lay beneath the tree. He looked up at the great branches above. They spread like arms stretching into the cosmos. Crickets chanted around him in complex rhythms, but beneath their hum was something else, a whisper. Tani had disappeared into the bush after sunset. The last thing she said before leaving was, "Tonight, your blood will walk backward through time. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't eat what you're offered. And if you hear your own voice behind you, do not turn." Sleep came like a possession, not a choice. Suddenly, Kweku was standing barefoot in red mud, but the village was not as it was now. The huts were rounder, the drums louder. Smoke danced from fires tended by women wearing gold-beaded veils. He looked down. He was not wearing his own face. He was in the body of another, his skin darker, younger, hands calloused. A leather pouch swung at his side. Men approached, speaking a language he understood but had never learned. Obadele, they called him. The council waits. He followed them toward a circle of elders seated beneath the baobab, younger and uncracked. An elder with leopard skin shoulders pointed at him. You promised the sacred grove would never be touched, that the white men would only build beyond the river. Obadele, Kweku's ancestor, opened his pouch. Gold coins spilled like snake eyes onto the earth. Their offerings are too great to ignore. With this we can build schools, buy medicine, move forward. The youngest elder stood. Move forward? On the bones of the gods. Gasps. A gust of wind bent the flames. A woman screamed from the back. The baobab shuddered, and its bark wept. Then the tree itself spoke. You have broken the pact. The dream shifted. Now Kweku stood alone in the grove. The baobab twisted upward into a sky smeared with blood-colored stars. From its roots rose figures made of dust and bone, ancestors, mothers, warriors, weeping children. One stepped forward. It was Obadele. You have come with modern hands, Kweku, he said, but your soul wears my debt. Kweku's voice shook. Tell me how to fix what you broke. Obadele pointed at the earth. You must give back what was taken, with your hands, with your name, with your time. But I have money, influence. I can donate. A flash of lightning cracked the sky. No, the ancestors said in one voice. You cannot buy forgiveness in the currency of the thief. Then a smaller figure stepped forward. A child. It was Tani, except she glowed with the light of stars. Her eyes held galaxies. She opened her mouth, and from it came the sound of the baobab's roots stretching in the earth. You must build what was destroyed. You must live among the dust until it accepts you. And when the tree blooms again, you will offer your name to it. Kweku woke with a jolt. The sky was soft with dawn. The baobab loomed above him, still but watching. His back burned. He lifted his bubo. The mark had spread. Now it curled across his shoulder like a winding river. The villagers approached in silence. Tani walked ahead, carrying a calabash filled with dark soil. "It has begun," she said, offering the calabash. "Take this. From the old grove your ancestors sold. This soil remembers. What do I do with it? Carry it, every day, until the tree accepts your spirit again." Kweku did not return to Accra that week. He sent word to Obatek, indefinite leave. The city could wait. The ancestors would not. He moved into his grandmother's abandoned compound, sweeping dust from the thresholds with his own hands. He fetched water from the well. He ate yam with the elders and listened to the tales of the griots. Children whispered that the CEO had gone mad. Elders said he was beginning to wake up. Each morning, he knelt before the baobab. Each night, he listened to the wind for the sound of his ancestor's voice. Weeks passed. The mark no longer spread, but it still pulsed. Tani appeared less often now. She walked with the spirits more than the living. But when she did come, she would sit beside him and whisper, "You are not paying for your ancestor. You are becoming him remade." Then, one night, the baobab bloomed, not with fruit, but with light. A single crimson blossom opened on its highest branch, glowing like a lantern for the dead. The village gathered, silent, sacred. Tani placed her small hand in Kweku's. "It is time," she said. The night the baobab bloomed, all of Abira gathered beneath it. Bare feet pressed into the soil like roots returning home. The elders wore cloth the color of dusk, and every drum in the village was silent, for this was not a night for noise, but for memory. A single red blossom shimmered at the crown of the sacred tree. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Not all could see it, but those who carried the blood of the broken pact could feel it. Kweku stood shirtless, his back bare to the night. The mark had grown into a winding river now, stretching across his spine and shoulder, its edges glowing faintly with ember light. He had fasted 3 days, no food, no speech, only ash water and silence. Tani stood beside him, her white thread bracelet now replaced by a strand of woven bark. The old man, Kwabena the elder, stepped forward. He held a calabash filled with something dark and trembling, soil from the original grove, the land once sold by Kweku's ancestor for gold and lies. Kwabena's voice broke the hush. The boy who left as Kweku Adisa must now be called by the name the ancestors remember. A rustle swept through the crowd like a question no one dared to ask. Tani stepped forward. Her voice was neither child nor spirit now. It was something in between. "Speak the truth of your blood." Kweku looked up at the great tree. The red blossom flickered. "I am Obadole's shadow." His wound reborn. His voice quaked, but he continued. "I carry the name of Adisa, but I carry the dead of Obadole. Tonight, I ask to become what he could not." Kwabena dipped his finger into the calabash and drew a spiral on Kweku's chest, the mirror of the mark on his back. "In the name of soil and sorrow," Kwabena intoned, "do you accept the burden of your ancestors' vow?" "I do." "In the name of breath and bone, do you give your name to the tree?" "I do." Kwabena raised his hands toward the blossom. "Then let the baobab decide if your voice is worthy." The air shifted. A sound rose, not from the drums, not from the mouths of men, but from the tree itself. A low, groaning hum, like the earth sighing in its sleep. Kweku collapsed to his knees. Visions returned, but they were not of the past. He saw a school built from clay and thatch, standing on the old grove land. He saw children learning the history of the ancestors, not in foreign textbooks, but from songs and carvings. He saw himself, older, wearing no suit, speaking in the village dialect he had once buried. He saw the baobab blooming red once more, and then silence. When Kweku opened his eyes, the blossom had fallen. It lay beside him on the earth, still glowing. He reached out, but Tani caught his wrist. "It is not yours to hold," she said. "It is yours to protect." The old man nodded. "You have been given a second name. Speak it now so the land will hear." Kweku rose slowly. "My name is now Kweku Adisa. I carry the past. I guard the present. I build for the unborn." The villagers bowed their heads, not in worship, but in welcome. He was one of them again. For the next season, Kweku did not leave Abira. With the blessing of the elders, he bought back the grove land from the foreign developers who had turned it into an abandoned solar farm. He planted yam with the farmers. He rebuilt the walls of the broken shrine with his own hands. He spoke to the youth, telling them of their histories, their ancestors, and the power of names. And in the evenings, he would sit beneath the baobab, the mark on his back now still, its fire cooled. Tani often joined him, but she had grown quieter, more distant. One evening he asked, "Will you stay here forever?" She smiled but did not answer. Then, one morning, she was gone. No footprints, no thread, only a small swirl drawn in ash at the foot of the tree. The villagers searched, the elders prayed, but Kweku understood. She was never fully of this world. She was the soul the ancestors sent to open the door. And once the door was walked through, she returned to the root. Still, he placed a stool beside the baobab every day, just in case she ever wished to return and sit. The story of the CEO who gave away his empire to reclaim his spirit became legend. Obatek still thrived, but now it served the village. The data it collected helped protect endangered languages, sacred lands, and ancestral wisdom. And every year, when the blossom fell from the baobab, the villagers gathered again, not in silence, but in song, because the wound was no longer bleeding. It was blooming. The rainy season came like a preacher, loud, unrelenting, and full of cleansing. It baptized the red earth until it turned black and rich, like the memory of sorrow turned to wisdom. The baobab of memory drank deep, its roots stretching into soil that now held no shame. Kweku Adisa, once the lost son of steel towers, now moved through the village not as a ghost, but as a man planted in his place. His hands had grown calloused. His tongue, once stiff with foreign syllables, now flowed with ancestral rhythm. He laughed like thunder. He wept without shame. But one night, as the moon swelled full and low, too full, too low, he awoke with his back burning again, not with shame, with summoning. He left his compound with only a lantern and his staff carved from the wood of the fallen shade tree. The baobab called, not with voice, but with gravity. Its pull was not of earth, but of blood. He walked barefoot, the wet soil gripping his toes like the hands of sleeping ancestors. When he arrived at the base of the baobab, the villagers were already gathered, silently, as if they too had heard the call. Children clutched mothers, elders leaned on staffs. The tree loomed above them, and for the first time in living memory, it split. A vertical crack from root to branch, glowing faintly from within like a door left slightly ajar. The elder stepped forward, tears cutting lines through his ash-dusted cheeks. "It is time," he whispered. Kwame knelt, heart pounding. "What is it?" he asked. "Another debt?" Kwabena shook his head. "Not debt, decision," and from the cracked tree stepped a figure, small, barefoot, wrapped in a white cloth that shimmered like morning mist. Tani. But she was not 7 anymore. Nor was she grown, she was becoming, part spirit, part girl, part breath from the mouth of the world. She walked toward Kwame, and the villagers parted like grass before wind. She spoke, and her voice was wind through hollow gourds. "The ancestors have watched. The name has been restored. But the root still needs a guardian." Kwame lowered his eyes. "What more do I owe?" Tani stepped forward and touched his forehead. "You owe nothing," she said, "but you are chosen." The baobab groaned again, its bark shedding dust like falling feathers. A branch lowered slowly, unnaturally curving toward the earth until it formed a perfect arch above the sacred stump, the spot where Obadele once gave away the grove for gold. Under this arch stood a small mound, fresh, covered in white petals. Tani pointed. "Beneath lies the blossom bone." Kwame looked at her. "What is that?" "The child buried long ago, the first broken vow, the first silence." And suddenly the vision came. Obadele, guilt-stricken, burying his newborn daughter beneath the baobab after her mother died in childbirth. She was the price the spirits took when he broke his promise to the land. Her death was the anchor for the curse, and her return, through spirit and time, was Tani. He fell to his knees. You were her." Tani nodded. "A fragment, a whisper, a return to finish the breath that was stolen." Kwame's hands trembled. "What must I do?" Tani stepped backward into the arch formed by the living branch. "You must choose to stay or to forget. The village will remember your deeds, but you, if you leave now, will forget all. The mark will vanish. The past will close." Kwame stood. The villagers watched, holding their breath. He looked at the baobab, at the children, at the soil his sweat had entered, and then he looked at his hands. He raised them. "I will stay," he said. "I will not only guard the past, I will shape the soil of the future." Tani smiled, a smile that echoed through every tree for miles. That night the baobab glowed. Its split healed before their eyes, and in place of the crack, a new carving appeared, a spiral. Inside it the name Kwame Obadele Adisa, guardian of the root. Tani's form faded into mist, her voice the last thing to remain. Now the cycle ends, not in silence, but in song. Years passed. Abira became more than a village. It became a center of memory, technology, language, and spirit. The Obatech campus stood at the edge, not towering but respectful, built of mud brick and solar wood. Knowledge flowed not just from code, but from story. Children learned under the baobab. They played where Tani once stood. And beneath the great tree sat Kwame, now gray-bearded and strong-eyed, his mark faded to a scar. But his presence, unmistakable, he told the tale each season under Moonlight, of the broken vow, the red blossom, the girl with the mirror mark. And each time he said her name, the wind would stir the leaves as if she was listening. And when he died, old and full of song, they did not bury him in the ground. They laid him beneath the baobab, where the first blossom had once fallen. The tree bloomed red that night, and has every year since. The blossom that falls into the right soil becomes a tree that remembers,